Hey, welcome back to the shop. Today, I want to do a quick video and talk about rasps and rasp-like objects. We all know what rasps are. We use them for removing wood. In the wood shop, in the boat shop I used to work in, we affectionately referred to them as wood erasers. And here I've got a layout of rasp and rasp-like objects. So let's come down and I'll point them out, what they are, and then we'll go into more detail. From left to right, we have a shore form, a Fairies Rasp, the rasp that everybody has in their toolbox. Your grandfather, great-grandfather, father, or father probably had one of these. Two Nicholsons, an Auriou, two bodyworking files or rasps, and two other rasp-like objects. These are kind of rasp-like objects, and this is kind of a rasp-like object. So let's go into some detail on these and how I use them and how they work. Let's start with the shore form. So this is mostly used for smoothing drywall and cleaning off the edge of a drywall that you've cut to make it a straight edge and smooth. It can be used with wood, not a problem. It removes wood pretty well. Now all it is basically a folded piece of steel with holes, square holes punched in it, and then with a hole stick out, it's been ground in this direction to give it a cutting edge in that direction. These are a dime a dozen. You get them at Home Depot or whatever. And it does a pretty good job. But again, this is mostly used for drywall. The next one is the All-American Stanley whoever whatever made rasp. This is the one your father, your grandfather, and your great-grandfather probably owned. It's a standard design. It's been around for hundreds of years, or 100 years at least. It removes wood pretty good, but it has its issues as well. The next are the two Nicholson rasps, a 49 and a 50. These are just called rasps now, but they are pattern makers' rasps. And for those who don't know, pattern makers would make the wooden patterns that were used for casting metals, to make the molds to cast metal. Here's a couple of pictures of some patterns that were made out of wood. Usually they're made of mahogany, and these were used to make the sand casting molds to cast steel, cast iron, brass, bronze, whatever. The two are two different grits. They're 49 and 50. One is finer than the other. And the nice thing about this one is these teeth are asymmetric. There's no real pattern in it. Well, the pattern is machine cut, but it's machine cut randomly as it can be. So this really cleans wood off very quickly, and it doesn't leave a lot of tooth marks behind. Now, unlike this one where the teeth are very symmetric, this is the granddaddy one. There's very symmetric teeth, and it leaves teeth marks behind it. There's other things as well. Now, to me, personally, the ultimate is the Auriou. And that's how it's pronounced. You see how it's spelled, but it's pronounced Auriou. This is the number 10. These are made in France, and these cutting teeth are put into this rasp surface manually. These are made by hand. That's why they're a bit pricey. They remove wood very quickly. The pattern is absolutely asymmetric. There's no pattern to it at all. And it doesn't leave much of any marks behind at all. It really removes wood very nicely. It's for fine work. It's very good for fine work. The next is the body panel or auto body rasp. And you see the teeth in this. These are little half round cutting teeth or curved cutting teeth. And the same with this one. These are just two different grit. This is finer, this is coarser. This removes wood pretty nicely, and it leaves a nice finish behind. Takes a little extra work. These came about back in the day when body repairs on cars was done with lead, not Bondo. And you'd lead the part that you need to clean up. You'd lead the part of the body where you need to do some filling, and you take these curvy cutty teeth rasps or files, and you would shave off the excess lead. Yeah, lead. Get stupid day, lead. Now these other rasp-like objects are these microfiles. I almost never use these anymore. They're okay, but they don't really remove wood quickly. They these little tiny teeth tend to fold in when you're using them, and it's very flexible. You can put this in a bandsaw, not a bandsaw, put this in a hacksaw blade, and this one, of course, has a handle. I just hardly ever use these anymore. And the last one is a big honkin' badass rasp. This is a Fairies Rasp. For those who aren't aware, a farrier is a blacksmith who shoes horses. He has big honkin' teeth on it, has kind of asymmetric pattern on this side, a symmetric pattern with a diagonal cut on this side, and it removes a lot of material very quickly. And this is used for working on horses' hooves. Let's do some cutting on some wood now, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about with these different rasps. Well, I got a little piece of 3/4 inch pine stuck in here. Let's start with the sure form. It peels off wood pretty nicely, leaves a fairly nice finish on here. But if you're working on any curved pieces, you obviously can't use this. But it does remove wood, as we say, a wood eraser. But then again, it's for flat surfaces only, and you're not going to use this on anything round. And like I said, I don't use this for woodworking much. I mostly use it for when I'm working on drywall. By the way, I hate working on drywall. Now the Granddaddy Rasp, I don't know if you can see in the image in the camera very well, but this is a fairly symmetric pattern. The way it's done is these teeth are set at the exact same distance apart, but each row is staggered over one tooth or half a tooth. So they're not quite as symmetric as it could be. So when you use this, it removes the wood, but it wants to track back down the same place you came through because of the symmetric tooth patterns. So it's good for removing wood, but like I said, that's a symmetric pattern, and it'll keep tracking in the same slot if you don't move it back and forth yourself. Now the pattern maker's rasp. This is the Nicholson 50. I'm only going to use the 50. I don't need to show you the 49, but if you look closely, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it has a very asymmetric pattern as far as the teeth placement in each row. So it removes wood very nicely. It leaves a nice smooth surface. And you can see why pattern makers would want to use these, because the pattern that's going to be used for the sand casting has to be dead smooth. Now my favorite, the Auriou. This is the handmade one. I have one. It was rather expensive when I bought it. You can get them from usually all the better woodworking suspects that sell stuff. Now this leaves a very smooth, extremely smooth surface when you're filing. Very smooth. So basically you're going to go to usually 100 grit sandpaper after this. And that's the Auriou Rasp. The body file is, as you can see, this is the coarser one. It's going to remove wood fairly well. But you'll note, it doesn't remove a lot, but it leaves an extremely smooth surface because this is flat. That's why it's not great for woodworking. It's more for doing metal work. So I don't use it much for woodworking. It's a very special occasion, but almost never. Camera adjustment. And now for the Fairies Rasp. As you can see, it has a diagonal cut both directions here, cross cut, and then it's got just teeth here. And they're kind of random, but not quite. And this removes a whole lot of wood that way, and a little less wood that way. This surface gives you a smooth surface. This one gives you a rough surface. But for a wood eraser, it really does the job. Last but not least, one of the rasp-like objects, the Microfile. So I've got this one because it's kind of stiff, but it removes wood, but like I said, these teeth here will kind of rise up into the, it's kind of springy, and they'll rise up into the file base. How about that? And again, this leaves a very smooth surface, very nice smooth surface, but because of its limitations, I don't use them often at all. What I use mostly, so in conclusion, for me personally, the rasps I use absolutely the most are the Nicholson pattern rasp and the Auriou. Mainly because of the asymmetric tooth patterns. They leave a smooth surface, but they erase wood pretty quickly. Fine work with the Auriou, less fine work with the 49 and 50 Nicholson. Now, I never use the rasp from my father, grandfather, great-grandfather. I just don't find it comfortable to use. But the Nicholson rasp and the Auriou, they're really good. Fairies Rasp, rarely. Like I said, I don't use the microplanes anymore. And I actually do metalwork, and I only use these for metalwork. That's all I use them for, is for metalwork. So I just wanted to give you a demo of how they're like on wood. So that's my rasp story, and I'm sticking to it. Rasps and rasp-like objects. I use them sparingly. When I'm doing round kind of work where I have to make those shapes, I'll use them. The rasp I use, as I showed you, are the two Nicholsons and the Auriou rasp. I don't use the others very often, but I have them in stock just in case. So, go forth and do raspy things. Use them as you see fit. Use them the way you want to. And on that note, have a good time. Make great things out of wood.